Did you know that a single overtake can decide a Formula One World Championship? Today I will tell you how Lando Norris executed the maneuver that finally made him world champion, and why that moment will be recorded as one of the most epic in the history of motorsports. Lando Norris is not an improvised champion. His rise to the top of the Formula One World Championship in 2025 is the natural outcome of a meticulous evolution that began long before the cameras focused on that final Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi. For years, the British pilot was labeled as promise, young talent, star in training. But those labels became a burden when opportunities didn't materialize. Season after season, Norris demonstrated speed, skill under pressure, and a unique ability to adapt to changing conditions. However, team mistakes, lack of technical consistency, and poorly executed strategic decisions prevented him from consolidating his place in the elite. Despite this, he never stopped pushing. Every second on the track was a silent investment towards the moment that would finally arrive in 2025. To understand how that moment was constructed, you have to look beyond Lando's helmet and look at what was happening at McLaren. The Woking team was experiencing a silent crisis after years of inconsistencies. But instead of continuing to bet on chaotic technical revolutions or desperate decisions in the driver market, McLaren opted for a deeper and quieter structural change. Under the direction of Andrea Stella, the team reorganized its technical pillars, restructured internal development processes, and committed to long-term strategic stability. There were no big headlines in the media or grandiose promises. What there was work, analysis, and an absolute dedication to understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the MCL38 first, and then the MCL39. The latter would be the definitive weapon. The synergy between Lando Norris and his engineer Will Joseph had become an alliance that went beyond the technical. It was an emotional connection, an absolute trust built through years of shared battles. That relationship was vital to maintaining calm in the most tense moments of the championship. Since the preseason tests, Lando showed signs of having made the mental leap he was missing. Not only was he fast, he was dominant even without leading, patient even under pressure, aggressive without being reckless. His attitude on the track was no longer that of someone looking to try something, but rather that of someone who knows he is ready. The MCL39, for its part, was conceived not as a revolution, but as a precise surgery on what already worked. Instead of redesigning the entire car, McLaren chose to refine key areas. The front suspension for better control in slow corners, diffuser efficiency to improve mid-corner passing, and adjustments to the cooling of the ERS system that allowed more power to be unleashed without sacrificing reliability. Every decision made during development had a single goal: to create a car that could be competitive in all conditions without obvious weaknesses. Come the end of the season, McLaren not only had the best car on the grid, it also had the most complete driver at the time. And that was no coincidence. It was a meticulous, patient construction that combined high-level engineering with human leadership that knew how to read the long-term potential of its pair of pilots. In that ecosystem of efficiency, preparation, and conviction, Lando Norris finally found the ideal environment to unleash all his talent. The dream that once seemed like a distant promise became inevitable. The final race of the 2025 season was not a simple calendar conclusion. It was a true dramatic work, where each turn had the weight of an entire season. Abu Dhabi, dressed as the epicenter of tension, calculation, contained chaos and maximum ambition. 3 drivers arrived with real options for the title: Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Oscar Piastri. And although mathematics offered a slight cushion for the British, motor racing has never respected safety margins. In modern Formula One, the slightest strategic error or the smallest inaccuracy on the track can undo a year of work. And everyone knew that. From the first lap, the Grand Prix was a pure manifestation of pressure. Verstappen defended his pole with the determination of someone who knows that only victory could save him. Piastri, without hesitation, attacked with everything and overtook his teammate Norris in a surgical maneuver in turn 8. That single image encapsulated what was at stake. McLaren was fighting itself as much as its rivals. At that moment, Oscar placed second and Lando third, momentarily falling into a dangerous area, vulnerable both to Leclerc's advance from behind and to the possibility of the championship result tilting in favor of the Australian or the Dutch. What happened from that point was a carefully orchestrated tactical dance from the McLaren wall. The first 17 turns were a lesson in mental toughness and control. Norris had no room for error or time for passivity. He had to resist the constant pressure of an aggressive Charles Leclerc, who attacked with the ferocity of a Ferrari with clean pace and unbridled ambition. Lando's defense was solid, almost stoic. But what really transformed the course of the race was a decision that took less than 3 seconds, but took years of maturity to execute without fear: the pit stop on lap 17. That pit stop was the turning point that was not seen on cameras, but that marked the outcome of the championship. While other teams waited for a safer stopping window or sought to react to their rivals, McLaren opted for its own strategy. Changing the medium tires for hard ones with the intention of going to the end was a risky move. Lando started 9th after the stoppage, far from the lead and surrounded by traffic. But the team knew something the rest had not yet fully discovered. The MCL39 in race configuration was a machine designed for progressive wear, not sprints. It had the ability to maintain a consistent and competitive pace over the long term, as long as the driver could navigate traffic without compromising the compounds. And that's where Norris rose. The following laps were not just overtakes, they were a champion's declaration. Between laps 19 and 25, Lando executed aggressive but surgically calculated maneuvers. First Carlos Sainz, then Kimi Antonelli, then George Russell. Drivers with talent, experience and competitive cars. But none of them could withstand the pressure of a determined Norris. Each of these overtakes had its own particularities, but they all shared the same constant: total confidence in the car and a perfect reading of the timing. There was no desperation. There were no errors. Just precision. The peak moment of this sequence came with Yuki Tsunoda. The Japanese Red Bull driver became, symbolically, the last obstacle. What happened in that duel was more than just a hand-to-hand fight. It was a battle with narrative implications. The car of the most dominant team of the hybrid era being challenged and surpassed by a reborn McLaren. Tsunoda, in his effort to maintain position, pushed his defense to the limit. The contact was inevitable. The 5-second penalty for the Japanese was fair, but by then it was already irrelevant. Norris had surpassed him on the track, clearly, with determination. From that moment on, the line that separated him from the world title was just a succession of error-free laps. The work was done. Every decision, every maneuver, every calculated risk in that final race was the product of an entire season of preparation and adaptation. The strategic chaos that unfolded at Yas Marina was no stranger to anyone, but McLaren not only survived the chaos, he used it as a catalyst to execute his plan with surgical coolness. While others doubted, they acted. And while others reacted, Norris decided. It was that type of race where not only the fastest wins but also the most complete. The one who knows when to attack, when to wait, when to adapt. And Lando Norris on that day showed that he was no longer a promise. He was the most complete driver on the grid. And finally, world champion. On December 7, 2025, the calendar marked the end of an epic season, but on the track there was no room for contemplation. The atmosphere in Yas Marina was electric, charged with a collective anxiety that seemed suspended in the air. It was not a simple race. It was the decisive confrontation between 3 world-class talents, and each one represented something more than their results. They represented philosophies, generations, styles. Max Verstappen, the current 4-time champion, symbol of aggressive dominance and the Red Bull era. Oscar Piastri, the young talent with a killer instinct, who had turned the role of squire into a direct threat. And Lando Norris, the perennial contender who had built his rise step by step, blow by blow, without legacies or teams designed around him. The tension began to take shape from the moment the traffic lights began to go out. Verstappen had a clean and fierce start from pole. Piastri, determined not to miss his chance, went on the inside in turn 8 with a surgical maneuver, overtaking his own teammate in a moment that would shake any internal hierarchical structure. Norris, who came with the championship virtually in hand, lost a critical position. That initial image was a silent bomb. In round 1 there was no longer room for conservative plans. Chaos did not wait. The middle part of the peloton was experiencing its own battles, and Leclerc, driving a Ferrari with a competitive pace, began to close the gap behind Norris. And there the first strategic dilemma was activated. McLaren had to decide: protect track position or make a bold decision that would break the dynamics of the race. Leclerc's pressure was real. Every lap that Norris spent containing the Monegasque meant more wear, more heat on the tires. Lando Norris did not win the championship by luck, nor by someone else's mistake, nor by a tactical coincidence. He won it because he built his momentum, step by step, lap after lap, season after season. And when the moment came, he didn't hesitate. He didn't look back. He just pushed, because he knew that was his curve, his advancement, his championship. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.